Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday, everyone. Welcome to Crypto Live with Bitcoin Bravado. I am the Bitcoin Broski here today with Kyle, BTC Jack Sparrow, and Bitcoin Birch. Gentlemen, how was your weekend?
Good weekend.
Good.
How are you guys doing?
We ate a lot.
Pretty all right.
We ate a lot. I didn't talk to you guys. I had a small Thanksgiving, like 4 or 5 people. It was really chill, and been kicking it ever since. What about you?
Yeah, gotta love Thanksgiving, man. It was good to go home and see the family and see all my high school buddies, and get a little break, especially with what's been going on in the market. Good to get away.
Yeah, and then we get pulled back into reality, so we can all depress over it together here on today's episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a nice time for replenishment on holidays or around holidays. I always like to take a step back from whatever is going on in life and actually appreciate the family that we get to spend time around. My wife's family's over from Europe, so we did the whole traditional Thanksgiving for them, so they got to have the full American experience, which basically just means eating until you pass out. But it was great. I had a good time. Today I know we wanted to cover. There's a couple of news stories that we wanted to get into. We also want to get into, of course, some Bitcoin analysis, and then we're going to talk a little bit about alts decoupling from Bitcoin, if that's a thing, how that looks, all of that. Thank you to those of you who continue to tune into the show. We appreciate your continued support. If you've got questions, comments, anything like that, throw it in the chat, and we will definitely address those as we go through the show. But guys, jumping right in today, a piece of news that's been floating around the interwebs and getting some love on Twitter, and is near and dear to my heart because I am an Ohioan by birth. Ohio has announced that they will be allowing businesses to pay their taxes in Bitcoin. What say you guys? Big deal? Not a big deal.
So, and the primary reason that I don't think it's a big deal is because if they're anything like the others that have come before them, I think Seminole County in Florida, I think Georgia earlier this year, just off the top of my head, there's several states that have taken this initiative. There's several countries that have taken this initiative, which is cool. It's cool. Okay, this is a cool story. It's not a big deal. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be working with BitPay. I didn't read this full article, but that's historically been the case. They're going to they're just using it as a form of payment. It's actually going to increase sell pressure. Obviously, anytime someone does pay their taxes with crypto, there's going to be sell pressure on that because it's sure shit not going to be hodled by Ohio. They're not going to become the next generation of bag holders. So I think it's cool. But,
Yeah. I know that there was I tweeted about this earlier, but I don't know how many people actually, and I know paying taxes and getting a refund are not mutually exclusive. People that pay their taxes do also get refunds. So I just want to be clear about that. I got attacked a little bit by people who were saying that because they get a refund, they're not paying taxes. I understand how it works. Yeah, I would prefer to not pay taxes. So those of you who get bent out of shape for me saying that you don't pay taxes, I wish I could join the club where I don't pay taxes. Unfortunately,
you don't want to be poor.
Uncle Sam's all up in these pockets. And I don't see enough people having a tax bill actually converting their fiat to Bitcoin just to pay it. So
no, this is more for like people who already hold a ton of crypto. This is certainly not going to be utilized by literally anybody who's not currently a crypto degenerate.
And to clarify too, you can pay your taxes in Bitcoin. The State Department will turn that into USD, so you don't have to liquidate your Bitcoin into. Well,
they're accepting crypto, but then they're going to be liquidating it using BitPay. So it's only going to be sell pressure on the Bitcoin side. It's cool. It's a novelty piece of news. It's on a state by state level, like these guys are trying to get that paper. So all they're doing is saying like, listen, we don't really care how you get us the money, especially if it's Bitcoin. We know there's enough liquidity that if you try to pay 10 grand in taxes, I'm a little bit more concerned as to, what the sell pressure might look like as a result, depending on how many people do. Because there's just people who have a ton of Bitcoin, right? There's people who have like hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of Bitcoin just sitting around. Believe it or not, those people do exist. And so some of them might be like, you know what? Here's 100 Bitcoin, and then that's got to get sold, obviously, in order to, so it's cool, but I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, and I do doubt how many people are actually going to pay their taxes in Bitcoin right now at current prices. I mean, I would pay my taxes when we're, at a new all-time high, I wouldn't mind, because you're going to sell it anyways. But right now, I don't see a lot of people selling their Bitcoin to pay their taxes if they don't intend to capitulate. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to realize that, I think there's a clear tie-in with Ohio and cryptocurrency. Obviously, without Ohio, flight wouldn't exist. No one would have ever walked on the moon. So I think it only makes sense for Ohio to be one of the first states to adopt this. All good things start in Ohio. Usually the real innovators leave to create what they're going to create elsewhere.
Yeah, but Ohio has Cleveland, bro. Like, like that's a huge slap. It's like almost like being from Florida, which is where you chose to move after leaving Ohio. So
I know. It's close.
You don't have-
We technically lump Cleveland into that state to the north, though. So anything good that happens, that we'll claim it, but anything bad that happens, we offload it to Michigan.
It was like worse than Ohio,
anyways,
Florida. So
yeah. It has been said. Yeah, noted. So moving on, another story that we wanted to talk about, a big transition that a major company in the States, and I guess technically globally, is making. Overstock.com, specifically Patrick Byrne, their CEO, and he announced this a while back. If you watched the show, you caught this announcement as it occurred right before we told you to go heavy into Raven. You're welcome for the Forex.
We didn't tell you anything. We just told you what we were doing.
Exactly. That's the correct way to put that. But anyways, Patrick Byrne announced that he was going to be shifting focus away from the traditional retail presence that Overstock.com has always focused on, and switching to a more crypto-focused approach to business. And they obviously have Medici Ventures, which is their investment arm. They are big backers of T0. And then Patrick Byrne himself is a big backer of Raven. So what do you guys think about this? I mean, this is a big company and a big shift.
Well, their stock's down 17% today. So based on the Wall Street Journals, I'm trying to pull up I'm just going to pull them up on TradingView. But yeah, I'd be curious.
The day of the announcement, their stock went up. Don't quote me on the exact percentage, but I believe it was 21%. Their stock rocketed up, after this announcement, or the official announcement a couple of days ago. Gotcha. Grew as much as 26%. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Byrne, he's obviously making a large bet on the crypto space and blockchain community. I mean, he's been one of, as the article said, one of the most ardent supporters of the space thus far. I think Overstock has been accepting Bitcoin. I'm not sure what other crypto has been accepting for its services, but it's been doing that for over a year now. He's making a risky bet here, I guess you could say, selling probably what's the most profitable side or aspect of his business to date to go all in on blockchain and crypto. But, I think we're all kind of doing the same here. So I understand his thought process and I believe in him. But at the same time, it's risky as hell.
Yeah, their stock's not faring very well today, primarily because of a rally. So it is down actually about 20% on open this morning. But on the 21st, from then it pumped up 20%. So we're basically just back down to mean for Overstock, but their stock has been performing like absolute dog shit for quite a while now. It's a massive site. It's obviously bullish for crypto. Like what else is new? I mean, bullish news is not hard to find. It doesn't seem to matter. But what I will say is that, just for some background on this, so they have Medici Ventures. That was kind of Overstock's foray into crypto, and they lost $39 million through the first 9 months of 2018, following $22 million loss in 2017, and Overstock lost $163 million through the first 9 months. So Overstock as a whole. So Overstock has been losing money, and a lot of that is because of investments into crypto. But the Medici Ventures has also been losing a lot of money. They had 21 million in losses in Q1, 8 million in losses in Q2, and 9.4 million in losses in Q3. So they're not performing particularly well, as is true for almost all funds that are out there. So as cool as it is on paper, as big as the news also sounds, they're going to sell. What he's going to do is sell Overstock, right? He's looking for buyers. Amazon, Google, these are probably some of the few companies that have the war chest to buy it, to afford it. So, I don't think you're going to see much change on Overstock. But if we do see Amazon, for instance, buy Overstock.com, they might do it not so much for infrastructure like some companies would, because Amazon owns that space, but just because there is actually some action for people spending cryptocurrency on the site, and it could be a small dip in the water for Amazon to start accepting crypto. So,
for sure, yeah. All right, well, guys, moving on. I know we really want to dive into to our conversation today as we continue the show. Thank you for those of you tuning in, Crypto Lab with Bitcoin Bravado. We're getting ready to get into our BTC analysis. So if you want to, Max, go ahead and bring that chart up and jump into the conversation. We can figure out what's Bitcoin doing. Where do we think it may go over the next couple of days?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since we started, like 5 minutes before we started, Bitcoin on Bitfinex was down to like 36.90, and it pumped back up to almost 4,000. So there's actually some exciting price action happening while we're on the show right now live. So let's check it out.
Yeah. Well, let's first of all start with just saying that it's really hard to say what's happening right now. There's a lot of analysts out there, and actually nobody really knows what's where things are going to end. Things are starting, but what we can do is look at the charts and mark some places that do kind of look like potential bounce zones, et cetera, et cetera. But we have to be very cautious on this way down to actually not overexpose ourselves to buying, but also carefully keep hedging ourselves short. Let me find my chart. Let's see. Are you guys seeing me? Yeah. All right. So here we go. All right, so we broke down the 4K support, and on Bitstamp we went to $3,500, and this is a level where previously we have found support back in September 2017, and we bounced off it. I personally think that looking at the volume we have been seeing over the last couple of days, there is a good chance that we might actually see somewhere lower. If you remember that we were talking about the descending triangle that we had during the bear market until we break down 6K, its target is 50% down from the breakout. So that would put us at 3K. So I'm personally still waiting for 3K to actually hit, which is also a beautiful resistance from back in June 2017 and July 2017, and it was then retested in September 2017. So this is a very nice round number, $3,000, that I'm personally looking to continue scaling into Bitcoin with spot buys, and perhaps I would love to get some low leverage plays in. But remember, leverage trading is risky, and if we actually do go to 1,000, you're gonna get liquidated and lose all of your money and not be around to live another day. So what are you guys looking at?
Yeah, so we talked a lot on a couple other shows about capitulation, and I'm a little bit triggered by all the people who are saying, like, this can't be capitulation. We need $1,000 red candle. No, we don't. If you study any historical capitulation, this is about as textbook as it gets. Historically, crypto has played very nicely with technical analysis, and that's proving true here. We've seen an absolute massive dump of about 45% just in the last week or so, last 10 days or so. And we've seen it on really high sell volume. That's the biggest argument that we're getting. So I'm hoping you can pull up some charts that show some of the volume in a little bit more clear light. But some of the arguments I've seen for like this not being capitulation is, well, there's not enough. We had way more sell volume, at this time or at that time. You have to look at relative sell volume. So you have to look at the volume relative to what it's looked like the last 8 months. What are we seeing on that front?
So I took a weekly chart that goes all the way back to 2012, which is what we're currently looking at. And I've been trying to compare a few things to, for example, when we look at 2014, 2015, which was our last bear market. And if we zoom in on this chart for the people who are listening to the podcast, the moment we broke down 6K, we started to see a weekly sell volume in the last week that was probably near to 3 times the average of the last 30 weeks. Sorry, my bad. So that's a giant increase in volume. And we're currently looking, I took a fractal from 2014, the moment we broke support, and I kind of copy pasted that fractal into the chart here. And I drew a couple of diagonals that have existed and been respected since like 2012 that go through price action all the way. And currently, if I kind of hide this fractal here, we see that the lowest diagonal here that we touched upon a lot of times since Bitcoin ever existed is where we're currently at. So what I want to see for capitulation to be real is I want to actually see a strong volume reaction. I took the time today to actually compare a couple of charts from 2014 and 2015. Let me pull them up. Sorry, my bad. Here they are. I lost them. But usually what you want to see is you want to see a sell-off, which is then followed by a high volume bounce that contains more volume than the sell-off, basically. So what we had is our first drop from 6K to like 5.5 towards 5. And what you can see on this chart is that we had high sell volume, but by the time we got a reaction, the volume was not all that great. Same happened on the second drop, where we went from like 5.5 to the low 4s. We saw increasing sell volume, but no real reaction when it comes to buy pressure and volume on the way back up. What we are seeing now, though, is after our third drop, we had a similar volume candle in size to our drop, which kind of, suggests that the buyers and the sellers are becoming more balanced. And for real capitulation, in my opinion, for my research, you want to have sellers that create less volume, and you want to have buyers that overpower these sellers in terms of volume on the way back. So the sellers capitulate. There's not a lot of people left to sell anymore. That's why there's not a lot of volume, and then the buyers come in and they blow everything apart. So if you take a look, this is the first drop. You see high volume when we zoom in on it, and then low volume on the bounce back. So that was pretty much confirmation that it was likely that we were going to continue down. And then the second drop, same story, high volume on the sell-off, but no real reaction in volume to buy it back up. And now what we've seen is some better volume reaction. So I think if we can have like 1 or 2 more like dips down into our liquidity zone and have some whales pushing it back, we may actually see capitulation right here. But I'm not as sure as Birch that this is capitulation.
Yeah. And Kyle, go ahead. I know you want us to say something. I'm going to pull something up while you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to lean with Joel here. I do think this is capitulation. I think the market's lost, 43% of its total value in about 12 days. I'm not sure what else it takes to be classified as capitulation when taking into account sentiment that I've seen throughout the space. But the way I've been approaching this is similar to kind of what Ronnie was saying there. Pretty much everything before November 13th, I have just completely ignored. And November 13th is when 6K was broken. And I've just been studying volume trends, RSI, and price action since then, and taking everything into account as its own piece of work. I think that if you try and compare volume now to what it's been the past 4 months, it's not going to make any sense to you. Same with RSI and everything like that. So like Ronnie was saying, we've had 3 dips so far. Each one, it's really been kind of lacking buyers so far. But I think this most recent one has actually found some buyers resurface and show themselves once again. The buy volume that we've seen over the past 48, 72 hours has been higher than anything really I think we've seen since this extreme sell-off has occurred.
Yeah.
And also, if you look at, I use the 4-hour chart and daily primarily to find a trend that I'm going to trade off of. And I think that on the 4-hour, the most recent 4-hour candle just printed a higher low off of the bottom that was put in on the 25th of November. And that the low there was 34.30. We just bounced in this most recent 4-hour candle off of 34.92. So far we've printed a higher low, and there's been good buy volume associated with that move. So I think this is the most bullish thing I've seen since this sell-off occurred. I think that, like I said, we see a higher low price action. I'm seeing bullish divergence on the 4-hour and daily RSI. And I'm actually seeing some significant buy volume here. So I actually like this spot to buy some spot BTC and play a short-term relief rally. I think that there probably is still some more downside due to occur, but I think that a relief rally makes sense here based on what we're seeing in the past like 12, 24 hours here. So.
Yeah, I do agree with you there, Kyle. And if I switch back to my screen to show what Kyle was talking about when we look at the chart from a live perspective, is to add to Kyle's point, is that on the last hourly candle, current hourly candle and the hourly candle before that, the volume that we've seen has been higher than actually during the sell-off towards it. So this is what you want to see. You want to see those buyers outperform the sellers, or at least to create some balance in the whole story. And I do agree with Kyle that this is the first time during those 3 drops that we've seen since 6K where I kind of feel there might actually be a balance. I do think that we'll see a relief rally, and that we may actually still tap into the low 3Ks, high 2000s as, like a final bounce to fuck everyone over who still had like over low leverage longs in that they thought they were safe with, and then get fucked on that bottom. That's usually what happens. It makes sense as a market maker. You want to tap those liquidity blocks. You want to really get and work over the people who are thinking they're safe and think they bought the bottom, and then dip into those stops and liquidations and say, bye, thank you. We take your positions and we're going to run them up for you and make the profit that you thought you were going to make instead of you, and you make a loss. So that's usually what happens. So I'm going to keep a bit of my fiat left over here to buy lower dips. But I did buy BTC as well today and yesterday at around like 3.5, 3.6. I love it, man. I mean, come on. If it's going to be worth 30K again, what's that? It's easy. It's easy money. Come on.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'm going to share my screen as well now too. Trying to make it a little bit easier. One thing I want to point out to everyone on the live stream, we've all seen this, right? We've all seen the Wall Street cheat sheet. So what I'm showing for podcast folks is the psychology of a market cycle. This has become a bit of a meme at this point. But here's what I need to stress to those of you guys out there. When we say capitulation, we're not calling that the bottom. There's two people are using capitulation and the bottom interchangeably. Capitulation historically, and many examples of capitulation in the equities market is not the low point of that particular cycle or of that particular stock or of that particular cryptocurrency. So what we shared on Telegram last week is basically a chart that I'm going to pull up right now, where we had our trend consolidation, which was still moving downwards above $6,000, $6,500, right? And then we started to break down. Now we have this ascending broadening wedge that Jack, we'll have you talk through in just a minute, but we do have this ascending broadening wedge, but right here, which is why I'm kind of targeting 3K. So we'll get into that in a minute. But what capitulation typically looks like across a lot of the things that I've studied in the last couple of weeks, even just really digging into it, is you have this massive sell-off, in this case, a 40% sell-off on the highest sell volume we've seen since the beginning of the year. Again, relative to volume over the last 6 months, it's really high. It crosses those. Then you see a bounce, and our target for the bounce was 3,500 when we put this on Telegram last week. That target may prove to be off by a few $100s. It may end up really seeing a relief bounce at 3K or 2,800 or whatever. But we have that target for a bounce, and then we will retest some type of resistance. Now, if we bounce at $3,500, we're probably going to retest relatively quickly. So, I mean, within about a week or so, we'll probably start to retest 4,500. At that point, if this is true capitulation, buy volume will step in. We'll see large buy volume on that bounce. But then we will likely see a long-term trend that you see here on my chart. So for podcast folks, essentially what you see is once we get rejected from the relief bounce on this capitulation, on this series of capitulation, I actually prefer to look at the Heiken Ashi because it's a little bit more aggressive. And it calculates opens and closes slightly differently. Once we get a relief bounce, we will likely, if this is capitulation, throughout the course of December and January, slowly trend back down to that low and possibly even below it. And that's why I think that we see a relief bounce around these levels up to mid 4Ks. Then I think we trend back towards 3K throughout the rest of the year slowly, and before slowly starting to break back up and returning to the mean, which ultimately will be 6K resistance early next year, Q1, like middle to late of Q1 of next year. So I've showed this a few different times. If this is capitulation, this is what it's going to look like. And when I say that I think we're seeing capitulation, I know we're seeing capitulation. I have friends and colleagues who have capitulated. It doesn't mean it's the bottom. It doesn't mean I don't think we're going to hit 3K or even sub 3K. I do not think there's any chance in hell we hit $1,000 Bitcoin or 1,200. Someone in the comments said 2015 drop landed on the previous all-time high, so a 2018 drop could land on the 2015 all-time high at 1,200. I don't know who, listen, I appreciate creative thinking and I appreciate everyone wanting to do their own analysis. Ultimately, we all have to make our own decisions with our own money. I don't think 2015's all-time high of 1,200 has anything to do with where Bitcoin's going to land now. I think that that's completely irrelevant. The reason for some people asking why 6K held up so well, 6K held up really, really well because it was the last pretty big dump before the bull market. So what we saw with 6K, and the reason 6K proved to be a decent support, was in November of last year, we saw Bitcoin drop 30% over the course of a couple of days. And it dropped 30% down to 6K. And that was where all those buyers stepped in. And so throughout 2018, there was confidence in that level. The reason being is because it was the last major support of 2017. And that's why 6K held up all year round. But eventually it gets beat and it gets beat and then it breaks down. And I think that first part of the breakdown was not capitulation. That was just a breakdown. Then we have back delay, Bitcoin Cash, hash war, sentiment, yada, 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 all this bullshit. And now we see a 35+% drop from that point down to $3,500. Guys, that's textbook capitulation. I don't know what else you can call it. And I'm going to stick with that there. It doesn't mean I think the bottom is in, but that's what we've seen here. And that's when I get excited to buy.
Yeah, and just a disclaimer, obviously, for those of you watching, we are not financial advisors. None of what we're saying should be taken as financial advice. This, again, is just our opinion on what we see from the market and how we are digesting and processing all of the information that's out there. But, shifting, is there anything else that you guys want to discuss on BTC before we talk a little bit about the coupling?
I'm just going to show the descending broadening wedge, but we do have some interesting comments.
Gotcha.
It's good to talk about for the podcast listeners as well. So John said, we could hit 1 to 2K due to hyperwave theory, Tone Vay's stream buddy, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I've spoken to Tone a million times. I was on a 4-hour live stream with him on Friday on Nick's channel. We've talked about this. I've told him to stop telling people Bitcoin's going to 1K. Here's the thing. It's not going to go to 1K based on technicals. There's so much happening in early 2019. 1K is, his theory is that it's all vaporware. And his theory is that Bitcoin won't replace the monetary system, which I don't disagree with. And I think that that's true. I think that that's true. But you also have to remember that so many of these vaporwares have 20, 30, 40 million dollars in capital. Many hundreds and hundreds of others have 3, 4, 5, 6, $10 million in capital with teams of 3 people who are sitting in a dorm room. That's just the reality. Like I've met these guys. Like I've met the CEO of like some pretty large cryptos. They would blow you away. Like these guys they're noobs as for running a business. They're noobs to crypto, many of them, but they're brilliant developers, and they saw something and took advantage of it. So for 1K, like Tone's argument is that all crypto is going to go to 0 and that Bitcoin's going to go to 1K, and that's that. So if you believe
also
that,
crazy.
Like, if you believe that, then that's fine. Do what you want with your own money. I will go down with the ship. If Bitcoin hits 1K, none of this matters to anyone on this stream or listening on this podcast.
Right.
We're playing a whole different ballgame at that point, and we're all totally fucked anyways. So what I'm talking about here is technicals, and because I do believe in the fundamentals of crypto, I do believe in the fundamentals of blockchain and Bitcoin. I don't see us trending much lower than about $3,000, give or take a couple hundred. And I'm going to continue to buy until I can't. And I'm willing to take the risk that I lose everything on it because, you know, I'm not overexposed personally. I have other stokes in the fire. So yes, most altcoins are vaporware. That doesn't mean that those prices won't pump. It doesn't. Like, dude, most tech companies are, I'm just sorry, guys, by the way, I'm arguing with something, not even arguing, I'm just talking to someone in the chat here. But yes, and I don't think we're disagreeing. Actually, me and John, I think, are on the same page. But yes, most are complete shit. Do you have any idea how much money Postmates loses every day? Any idea how much YouTube loses every day? DoorDash, just because that's my scope. Uber, okay?
Yeah.
Airbnb. These companies lose billions of dollars in some cases every year. And the reason that they continue to have value is because people believe in the future. So, yeah, they're vaporware, but so half of Silicon Valley is shit startups with $10, $20 million valuations, and they're still going to make a ton of money. So don't get too caught up in the fact that the tech hasn't caught up to price yet. That's what I'll say on that.
Well, the reason, sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, I just want to, I have respect for Tone. I think he's a good guy, but if he's going to classify probably the world's largest socioeconomic experiment with millions of people internationally contributing raw energy and hash power towards a system based on mathematics and pure technological fundamentals, and he's going to think this is all going to go away, and this is how far it's come in 10 years, I will happily counter trade that. Like, oh my God. Like, that's just, I just don't understand the thought process there. I don't know how, like, fine, like for him, like if that's what
Kyle, like if you really are, if you're like, think about it, like there's a lot of people who say the same about Silicon Valley. There's people who are losing hundreds of millions of dollars right now as funds shorting Silicon Valley, hoping for that bubble to pop. And what we've started to see is in tech stocks, we've started to see that. So like, there's a logical part of me that says like, dude, Grubhub shouldn't be worth $13 billion. Uber shouldn't be worth $50 billion. These companies shouldn't be worth shit. They're all crap and they don't make any money. But there's the other part of me that understands that you can still make a shit ton of money trading these scams, and that's no different in crypto. So I'm right there with you, my friend. I'm right there with you.
But if he's a technical trader, if that's what he is, then one of the number one rules of being a technical trader is you don't allow fundamentals to shift your scope and view. So I like him a lot, but I just don't agree with that at all. But anyways, whatever.
Yeah, well, the biggest reason why Tony believes that we're going to see $1,000 Bitcoin is because we have this gap between 1,800 and $1,300, like $1,000, and he believes that every gap needs to be filled before we actually can go up. But if we look back in time, this has happened before. I mean, there's a giant gap between $67 and $16. Doesn't mean that we're all going all the way back to those levels to actually fill that up.
$16 Bitcoin.
I mean, come on,
$16 Bitcoin.
I love Tony. I've met him 2 times, and we had discussions, and he has a very strong opinion on things. But $1,000 Bitcoin. I mean, sure, if it happens, well, yeah. But let's put it this way: if Tone Vase,
we should have him on. Holy smokes, could be our first real debate.
Oh, we'll get him on.
Well, look, and I've been pretty outspoken with regards to my thoughts on Tone leading up to this dump, and I'll be the first person to say I was fucking wrong, and he was right, and no doubt about that. He does have a grasp of technical analysis and what's going on with the market. So people who call him a moron and things of that nature.
And he really
I've
understands the fundamentals of crypto. Like, he gets blockchain. He can explain hash power and hash rate to you. Like, he can talk about it.
He knows.
Yeah. I mean, he's a brilliant guy. Like, make no mistake about it. He's a brilliant guy. He's just got an opinion that we happen to disagree with. So, that's how life works, right? Everyone improves by having different opinions and coming to the table and figuring out how to, what's the best way to move forward. So I can respect his opinion. I don't agree with it. I think none of us on here really see Bitcoin going to $1,000. And I can also, I mean, I hate to speak for everyone on here, but I'd like to think that the four of us on here, if Bitcoin does hit $1,000, we're not going to be calling, oh my God, what the fuck is this? We're just gonna be buying it.
Bitcoin could go. Bitcoin. I'm not ruling $1,000 out for Bitcoin. I'm not. But I'm not going to sit here and say anything. I'm not going to sit here and say that cryptocurrency and blockchain is all vaporware and it's all going to zero. That is like that. I didn't know I didn't. That's the first time I've heard that's his opinion until today. Yeah, I have to say I'm confused.
Yeah, and guys, we talked about Overstock.com losing $170 million this year. Their crypto fund lost $17 million in 2017. How the fuck did you lose $17 million in 2017? Yeah. But the company is still valued, based on like the real world, the stock market, they're still valued at $1.7 billion. So I don't give a crap if it's vaporware. If it scams pump the hardest, folks. We're over here trying to make money trading this market, and ultimately the argument that so many of these projects are crap or have no revenue or yet, okay, well, welcome to the entire history of NASDAQ, going back to 1985.
Right. Well, and you got to ask yourself, like, why? Patrick Byrne is a savvy businessman, right? He's a smart person. He built a huge company. Why is he okay with losing that amount of money? I mean, that's the question I always ask myself. Is like, T0 is losing, according to some reports, $2 million a month. Right. Why are people still bullish on it fundamentally? You just have to ask yourself that question. You've got to define a strategy for yourself, and you've got to stick to your fucking guns. Things are going to happen in a market, but if you believe in the tech and you believe in the ability to make money on it, investing isn't a short-term thing. Like, if you're in this market to scalp and day trade, chances are the majority of people are going to lose money if that's your strategy. But if you're picking a pony and you're going to fucking ride this thing to the finish line, there are a lot of great companies that I think are going to make huge, huge financial gains. And we were talking about that before the show. This is exciting. You know what I mean? Like, looking at the market in these conditions, you can be a pessimist or you can be an optimist. But if you're going to be a pessimist, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, if you don't have an optimistic outlook for the future, just fucking leave. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of excitement that can be had from looking at $120 billion market cap and Bitcoin at fucking $3,700. And get out of here. I bought it at $17,500, bro.
Get out of here with your "I believe in blockchain but not Bitcoin" bullshit argument too. For any of you guys, I believe in blockchain but not Bitcoin. Get out of here, dude. Like, you're not understanding the very basis of blockchain technology. I don't believe Bitcoin's going to replace monetary value or monetary currency. We can have a whole nother show about the fact that I believe governments will continue to decentralize and digitize their currency systems. But that there's a whole place for blockchain, and we'll talk about that and for Bitcoin, we'll talk about that another show. But yeah, we get kind of riled up about this.
All right. Well, so let's jump in. I mean, we wanted to talk about. Sorry, Ronnie. Go. Your descending wedge. Let's talk about that
real quick. So a descending broadening wedge is a structure where you have two diagonals that are both sloping down, but they are widening. So like you have a rising wedge and a falling wedge, and they like the two diagonals, they come together. They slope towards each other, but in this case, they slope away from each other. And what often happens with descending broadening wedges is that you have the third touch on the bottom diagonal is usually the place where you want to long it, and it has an incredible hit rate in terms of reaching its target, which is the start of the wedge. So in this case, that would be $4,800 if we actually manage to hit the third time on the bottom here, which could actually be around 3K eventually, and then reverse all the way back to 4,800. These have like hit rates of around like 70, 72, 73, maybe even a bit higher percent. So these are structures that I really like to trade. And there is one more. larger one, which has not been confirmed yet because there haven't been enough touches on the upside. But there is a potentially larger one that may actually has seen its third touch already. So there are some patterns that suggest that we might see some upsides.
So, we were going to talk about decoupling of alts and cover a lot of things. I just don't think, as far as time goes, that we're going to have, ample time to get into that in detail as we would like to do. There was a question that someone had posed about STOs, and I thought we could just take a couple of minutes and talk about that, since we've kind of touched on Overstock and T0 and all of that. John had mentioned that we're going to see an STO mania similar to how we saw an ICO mania, is what I assume he's referring to. I will say that I think that in this space, we're going to see we're going to see some big stuff come from those that are backing STOs. Like Polymath is a company that I know most people are familiar with. Raven is another one that we've talked about ad nauseum, and they are going to be on the STO train as well, or people will have the ability to do that. They're not going to be on any train because they don't have any kind of central governing body. So
yeah, and he points out trying to make sure you're avoiding fake STOs. Again, there may still be plenty of money to be made depending on the market cycle, but a fake STO,
yes,
assuming you're talking about one that hasn't classified the appropriate regulatory, you haven't filed the appropriate paperwork to be a real STO. There are a lot of, I've seen there's been companies out there who have said, like, we're doing an STO, I think, for the trend, even though it's not technically an STO. So there's a whole other level of diligence that has to go into investing into an STO. And for those who don't know, an STO is similar to an ICO. It's in practice, it's the exact same. It's using cryptocurrency to crowdfund your business, but it's a security token offering. So as opposed to having a utility token, you have a token that you do say, essentially, you're investing with the expectation of profit, and you're going to have some type of ownership of that, of the company or of the token pool or what have you. STOs, I don't think are going to be as popular as people think. And I'd be curious to know what you guys think, and then I'll end on my point, because I don't want to talk too much, but you know how I like to.
Well, one thing that I would say, just to point people, if you want a resource for STOs to do a little bit more digging and to get into that, I would encourage you to check out Bruce Fenton on Twitter. He is the founder and CEO of Atlantic Financial, also I think someone that we will see as STOs continue to emerge, someone who will be a thought leader in that space. He's put out a ton of good content up to this point on STOs. So if you have questions about them, he does a great job of covering what they are, what they aren't, and how they should be evaluated individually as opposed to as a group, because every investment should be considered on its own and in and of itself. You shouldn't be looking at a basket of STOs as, hey, this is a great thing or this is a bad thing, But Ronnie, Kyle, what are your guys' thoughts on STOs?
You want to take this one, Kyle, or should I go ahead?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
All right. So I'm incredibly bullish on STOs in the infrastructure sense. I'm incredibly interested to see financial inclusion from parties around the world who will be able to access certain investment assets classes that were previously not able to invest in. So, I mean, for existing companies to finally, eventually create a security token that exists in a digital world, let's be honest, like stocks, they're a digital representation of an analog world. STOs are a digital representation of a digital world. So it includes people who currently don't have access to certain investment classes, which brings more money. So that makes it very interesting for those companies. So investing in infrastructure that could provide security token trading and automated jurisdiction, regulatory, whatever you want to call it, involvement is in my opinion very bullish. But the fact that some kind of company is coming out with an STO and you want to say, like, hey, because it's a security token, because it's a token, it's a digitalized form of some kind of stock, we have to buy it because it's going to move. No, I don't agree. I don't think that's where the value is. But if you can invest in infrastructure that you are really thinking is going to be one of the leaders when it comes to creating an environment to trade and exchange security tokens, yes, I do believe that's going to be something that's interesting.
Yes. So tokenize everything is kind of what we're going for. I think that there's no doubt that the stock market as we know it, the traditional equities market as we know it, will continue to change drastically in the next decade. I think that there will be a really large presence of blockchain technology or a competitor to blockchain like Hashgraphs. Again, that could be a whole nother episode where we talk about the fact that blockchain isn't the only decentralized system out there that's trying to solve these problems. And there's whole and total competitors to that. But so I think that you'll see a lot of traditional companies maybe move into digital equities. I think that you'll see, I know that you'll see a ton of security token offerings. I don't like the barrier to entry though. And really what I'm focused on with you guys anyways, outside of like our fund life and everything else, is the retail side. Like the guys who are listening right now, they're interested as retailers. And unfortunately, STOs are going to really present a barrier to entry for retail investors, because it's absolutely going to be required that you meet the same standards that you need to meet today in order to take advantage of some of those types of opportunities in equity and things like that. So you're going to have to be accredited, going to have to not live in the United States if you're not accredited. That's going to continue to evolve. So I think STOs are going to be big, but that's not I don't think that's going to be something that we see a lot on the retail side in 2019. What I do think we're going to see a lot of are what none of you guys have heard of yet. And so I'm excited for all you podcasters and YouTubers out there. Write this down. IEOs. Okay. IEOs. And this is an initial exchange offering. And in 2019, I believe that DEXs are going to be quite popular. I don't think we're going to see a 10,000% market in 2019. I do think we will see a 30 to 50% market in 2019. So I think we're going to trend sideways and upwards for most of 2019. And I think as a result, we are going to see a prevalence of more decentralized exchanges. That's what a DEX is for those who don't know. So a decentralized exchange that comes out, and there's going to be multiple of them. We know that Omise Go has their own decentralized exchange. That's one of many who have the infrastructure to do it. I've heard rumors of Neo and others having all their own decentralized exchange. Bittrex having a decentralized exchange. Even Coinbase has talked about having a DEX or operating a DEX in some capacity, which is going to enable peer-to-peer trading. As a result, what we're seeing is we're actually seeing new companies that would have historically done an ICO approach exchanges for the infrastructure of selling their tokens to early investors through what's called an initial exchange offering, an IEO. So how that plays out remains to be seen, but I think that the next wave of crowdfunding in crypto will actually be register with this exclusive exchange that we've partnered with to buy our tokens pre-sale, where you can't sell them on exchange, you can only buy them, and then they're available for trading at whatever point. And it's a creative way to get around certain ICO rules. I think STOs are going to have too large of a barrier to entry, and you're not seeing anybody talk about IEOs because this is really mostly just insider stuff, whispers around the hallways. This is water cooler stuff that I'm filling you guys in on within the space, but it's definitely going to be something that you see more of. And with DEXs especially, which are going to enable peer-to-peer trading in a way that a lot of people are going to be able to get around KYC and things. Not that that's something I would ever do, but for those of you out there who would, this is probably going to be your next opportunity to participate in ICOs is through these IEOs, these initial exchange offerings. So you heard it here first on the Crypto Live podcast.
How is that going to work out, like with regulations? Because these exchanges would still be selling if they are not registered securities, they would still be selling unregistered securities.
Well, that's why I think it's going to grow with the dominance of DEXs next year. A true DEX, one that really makes it. First of all, these guys aren't worried about the United States. Let's all be clear on that. The United States makes up a smaller portion of the crypto economy than most people think. And I really am bearish on the United States involvement in this space, unfortunately, in the next 12 to 18 months, because there's just a lot of hand-holding going on. So with that said, it's a true DEX is not going to have to worry about that, no different than BitTorrent doesn't have to worry about the United States, because a truly decentralized system is going to run off of each of our individual computers throughout the entire entire world where we can do peer-to-peer trades and transact on an infrastructure. So I think that's going to be something that gets more popular in 2019, the decentralized exchanges. And then there's going to be, and then to answer the question for exchanges potentially doing this that are working with regulators or are a little bit that aren't Texas, I don't know, man. I'm not the lawyer. I'm not exactly sure, but I do know that these are the whispers of the hallway, and the hallway has some really smart people in it. And it's just something I wanted to put out there on the radar, something I've been thinking about. So we will see. I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy with a Christmas tree 2 days after Thanksgiving.
It is exciting to think about. At least it's going to bring some hype to it when it gets to the market, and then everyone's going to buy it, and then then people are going to FUD it because regulators. So yeah, I mean we know the drill by now.
I'm just curious if Birch just literally invented IEOs right around the show. I'm going to start a conspiracy that he literally just created IEOs on Crypto Live. So everybody mark your calendars, 11/26/18 IEOs.
I told you, I've been working on a lot. I've been building a lot in this bear market. And I'm telling you, IEOs are something you're going to see. So keep an eye out.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Is Bravado going to build a DEX event?
Bravado is moving to fantasy football sub 3K. So this time next week, we'll probably be talking about fantasy football, and I'll be crying about the Packers instead of crypto. 2018 sucks, Kyle. God damn. The Packers.
Yeah, 2018 sucks.
Just get this year over with. I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah. All I know is I can go to bed at night without considering the fact that all of crypto is vaporware. So with that, I'm happy.
It's not all vaporware.
You haven't staked your entire life's future on vaporware, Kyle, right? Listen.
Put so many millions of dollars into vaporware in Silicon Valley just because the blockchain doesn't have a token. Like, this is nothing new. So
last week, someone sent $20 million in 10 minutes for about 15 cents across the world. Does that sound like vaporware? That sounds like a complete product to me. But maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
I mean, you're talking. Okay, so here's the challenge: is you have a bunch of people who have never evaluating businesses. So, and not to say that that's tone based, right? But the majority of
Bitcoin. And first of all, let's get it straight. Bitcoin's not a business,
right?
Well, correct.
It's a protocol that exists on the internet.
Correct. Right. So just people wrapping their heads around that is one thing in and of itself. Like trying to explain how a group of random people designed a system that's going to be used as money without ever being in the same room or ever really having a meeting about it and just working on code simultaneously. That's hard for most people to wrap their heads around. So the space we've got a lot to do with encouraging mass adoption before people can actually formulate intelligent opinions on where the space is going. For those of you who are intelligent enough to continue to tune in to watch us every Monday and Wednesday, Friday, we appreciate your guys' support. Keep it locked, guys. We've got a big announcement coming up about the end of this week. We are going to do a show for you guys that we think you'll really enjoy and hopefully you want to engage with. And there's going to be a lot of announcements coming out of Bitcoin Bravado and Crypto Live. So just keep it tuned. We are going to be here again on Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, barring Bitcoin's dump below. We'll say 2,000. If we're above 2,000, we'll be here on Wednesday. It's only 2 days away.
Below 3,000, I'm not getting on this damn podcast. Waiting. Just smash that like button and hit that subscribe button if you would be so kind. And if you're on Spotify or iTunes, please make sure to jump across the platforms and check us out there as well. The live stream is a lot of fun. But we're here in the bear market, no matter what the price of Bitcoin is, above 3K. And we're not getting paid for it, and happily so. We're getting wrecked right alongside you, but we're having fun with a smile on our face. So we hope to continue to see you guys here.
Yeah, at least you got a Christmas tree in the back, bro.
Right?
Yeah.
You're all set for 2018. Guys, I couldn't see out of these windows when I woke up. It was just white. I couldn't see any buildings. It was a crazy storm here in Chicago, so it's pretty cool. But I do love the Christmas feel. So I have like lights all over the place and all kinds of stuff because even though I don't get presents anymore because I have no friends or family, I still like the way it all feels. Yeah, they all left me when I told them to buy Bitcoin at 20K. So.
We're gonna link Birch's Bitcoin address in this, so that if you guys want to send him any gifts for Christmas, you'll know where to gift them.
If you guys want to gift me at all, no, I didn't show anyone 20K Bitcoin because it never hit 20K. So let's go.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. It's good catching up with you guys and everyone else. We will see you again on Wednesday.
Thanks for tuning in.
All right, fellas.
See ya.